We came in a market with $1,500, no connections, no one. Start thinking of your business as a sellable business. The mistake that I've done in the past is to open too many things at the same time.
So Alessandro, you and your co-founder started this agency with $1,500 in your pocket. You just moved to the US from Italy, and you guys didn't know anyone here. You took a big bet on TikTok the year it launched, and it paid off. Like today, you guys have 50 employees. You've added on Instagram and YouTube, and you work with some of the biggest clients in the world. Like you've got Google, you've got Sony, you've got Hyundai Motors. So Alessandro, take me back to the moment that your business really started to grow. You had this oh shoot moment. You realized you need to build systems, hire teams. Like this is a real business. Like what happened?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me, Brian, today. Happy to talk about this. I know, how difficult, right? At the beginning of a new business is to run everything. You have so many hats and you want to do everything, right? And it's the moment on, when to delegate. And also as little background, I've always been, before making my own company, building a company, I was freelancing. I never been a 9 to 5. So I don't come from, the world. I come from more of the world of, if you're freelancing, if you do not work, if you don't know how to manage your time and tasks, you don't really get paid. And so I was already kind of understanding that that you cannot do everything by yourself. And so for me, the moment I'd say that, we started having a few clients here and there. As you said, we bet on TikTok, and we wanted to get a few clients, and then back in the day I was living in Miami, in Miami Beach. The idea was like, I'm gonna get 3 clients and then I'm gonna chill on the beach. And then likely it kind of exploded in the right way because, we got so much interest in TikTok. No one was betting on it, but we did. And so I'd say that at the beginning, you do everything, right? I did the website myself because I come from that background. I did all the SEO myself because I also know that my co-founder, she's great in there is sales and operation. So for the first year, right, we were, kind of be able to run a lot of things at the same time. But one thing that we really realized, again, as immigrants that are in a new country, right, a new place that has different rules, it was all the financial side. How do you, accounting, and specifically in our business that we have so many microtransaction, reconciliation. Someone that can help you reconciliate expenses, cost, recognize COGS of campaigns and so on. That is one of those things that as a founder, you want to have an overview. You want to understand what is going on and having a good pulse of the situation. You cannot just delegate entirely, right? Your finance, especially at the beginning. Every cent matters. If you are, as we are, bootstrapped, every dollar matters. And so because of that reason, I think that it's important to have a very good idea of what is happening. But there are certain functions that you want to delegate to for 2 reasons. One, you cannot do it all. And number 2, you might not be the right fit for certain things. Like I don't have, a strong background in finance, and I don't really know much, or at least at the time, I didn't know anything about accounting. So either I learn everything by myself, and then I do mistakes. And, you don't want to make mistakes when it comes to finance in the US. I was like, let me get someone. And so I think that was the first real important hiring, because hiring, campaign managers, of course that is important, but it's a world that I understood. That it was for me to delegate just to scale the business and being able to manage more things. But there are certain things, and again, for me, it was all the financial, aspects and the accounting and so on. That was like, I didn't even know where to start. It's a different country, different rules. If I do it myself, I would most probably do, mistakes. And so that was the first big one. Like, we need to hire someone that help us with the numbers.
Why was finance so painful for you guys?
Because I think that it's very time consuming as a thing. There are, in our business, in the influencer marketing business, there are so many rows in an Excel file that is microtransaction, right? Especially when we started the business, we were doing, of course, working on smaller campaigns. And smaller campaigns back in the day, okay, I'm talking about TikTok, you were maybe paying someone $50 to make a video. And now you have maybe 50 people, right, that you have to pay kind of the same amount. And so now you're looking at a very small amount, but a lot of rows to reconcile. And now you're looking at expenses. one thing, for instance, as you start scaling your business, you will start realizing that it's not just about the people, it's about also the amount of like subscriptions and SaaS that you have. So it's all these things that you kind of need to know, but like, why, should I just waste time basically in really like focusing on something that is again, this is plus, this is minus, this is, anything that I have to consider for the day to day. Again, it's very important to have a pulse of that. But I found myself at a certain point, I was like, I don't know how to reconcile this thing. I don't know, like in QuickBooks, where should I click? Again, can I learn it myself? Yes, but it's such an important aspect of finance that, why should I do something that I'm not good at? So that was, as soon as we started making the first money, we got like a firm helping us, and then a contractor to help us with the reconciliation. And then we went from like, let's hope for the best, to we have a person that is only for AR, one is for AP, then, you got the CFO, and so on and so on and so on. But that to us, it was crucial, I'd say, from the beginning. If you want to have a proper business that is based on facts, is based on, on something that can be, can be, you can create a framework, you can better forecast expenses and so on. Because if you don't really calculate everything from the beginning, you can have a sense of what is going on. But, it's that easy that you burn cash, and after maybe a few months, you're out of business.
So I heard you say you first hired an agency, and then it sounds like you then hired a contractor. What was the decision? Why the switch, and
Sure.
what were the pros and cons?
At the beginning, when we were like a small business, this firm didn't really care much about us. I get it. We were a small business, right? We weren't bringing much. So we kind of were only paying for the basics, right? And one day we were talking, and we were almost at the end. And, another like very time consuming thing in our business is all the W-9 for contractors. Like every influencer has a W-9 and 1099 that they have to send us, right? Anything that is up a certain, amount, right? You have to, of course, you have to declare. And because of that reason, you find at the end of the year, you have thousands of 1099s that they go through. And this firm, I think they didn't understand each other from the beginning, and they were like, oh, that's on you. We're not going to do that. And we panicked, and we're like, shit, we have like a few days to get everything under control. And we realized that sometimes with an external firm, if you are not aligned, if you are not really understanding what they will provide you, and again, for me, it was a new country. I didn't really know anything that was going on there at the time, like, coming from a different country and so on. I didn't even know, like, what do you have to submit, right, to IRS? What do you have to do when it comes to W-9 and W-2s and W-8s when you work with contractors outside the US? There are so many things that you learn the hard way, I'd say. And I think that it's okay maybe initially to use another agency just because you get it as fractional, and you don't need that many hours. As we started growing the company, we started realizing this firm, they are not the good one for us. And we were like, can we rely on someone that is someone external instead of having actually in-house? And we were like, something like AR and AP is just so crucial that we needed to bring someone in. And so one person, is an employee, another person is a contractor, but work a lot of hours on our account. And no matter what, we wanted to have these people in constant, communication possible. So, they are on our Slack, they have our company, email, while before with a firm, it's them. You are one of the hundreds of clients, and they will never care about you as someone that you bring in, right? That's totally normal. It's the same like having an SEO agency or do it in-house. It's always pros and cons. But I think that when it comes to finance and again, accounting, reconciliate, AP, AR, you want someone that is on your team, someone that understands also your business. Because if you go with a firm, sometimes, and again, especially if you're like maybe on a smaller side, they might not care much about you, and also want to say, if you go with a firm, be sure that they understand your business. Because at the beginning we didn't know any better, and we went with a firm that was mostly doing like brick and mortar type of and we were business only. They were like not understanding, how don't you have like a physical location? Where is this and that? I'm like, no, everything is remote. It's a digital business. They were having a hard time. So after the first year, we were like, listen, this was the beginning. We understood a few things. Mistakes were made. We learned from that. It's time for us to hire. And that was the haha moment for us. Like, we need to internalize this because it's too crucial.
So it sounds like it was you started with an agency and then said, hey, these people don't understand us. We're one of many. We need more control.
Yeah.
And so you brought it in-house.
Yes.
And when you brought it in-house, it sounds like you kind of you took the function and split it into two, some employees, some contractors. How'd you make that decision once you brought it in-house of who was a contractor versus who's an employee?
I'd say initially, when anything that was more of, financial controllers and all that type of things, and, CFOs, we wanted to have someone that was present in the business because we need to run, the day-to-day operation, and then forecasting. Like, you want the person that's going to be basically in your team 24/7. When it came to AR, right? So accounts receivable, initially was, let's get a contractor that can work X amount of hours. And we kind of went on a journey where we noticed that this person was still, dedicating enough time and efforts in us, but we didn't necessarily need someone that was employed to do the AR. Because when we calculate the time, the hour, like, you do, okay, number of hours, and then you have to calculate the benefits, and then health insurance and this and that. We were like, okay, for the amount that we need currently, I think that we're okay with the contractor. So at the end of the day, it's really like calculate the amount of time that you need a person, what are going to be the tasks, and you take the total. I think that sometimes when you do calculation of new employees, you don't sometimes, unfortunately, do the mistake of include the total, the grand total. And it's not just the salary, right? It's the benefits, it's the PTO, it's the sick days, it's this and that. And at a certain point, if you do believe that a function can be run by a contractor, that of course you need to trust, right? It's someone that, especially again, when it comes to finance, will know about how much you're making, how much you're all, and so on. You want someone that you can trust. In that case, this contractor came from our employee, so they already used to work together. So in that case, it was a referral, so there was already a sort of trust in there. But yes, like, to answer your question, that decision was mostly based on do we need this person full time as an employee that it's part of the business. And we were like, for the amount of hour, we were able to be in a way that we don't need this person every day. It's better to do, let's say, 3 times a week, check-ins and sending emails out to collect, AR. And so far it's working well. So why change, a process that works well? If the company will grow past that, then yes, we might think to say, what now these 3 check-ins a week doesn't suffice anymore. Now we bring in a person. But at the end of the day, again, with a bootstrap company, everything has to make sense to the dollar, right? Can we afford a person to do this task or not? If not, then it's better to have in a contractor. So it's really like case by case, I'd say. But a majority of the people, like everyone in the US for us, is an employee W-2, and contractors are all those people that work on accounts in Europe or other part of the world, like LATAM, where it's very difficult to open up position all the time, like in terms of financials and legal and everything. And so they work this amount of hour for you. And these days it's quite common, right, to have in assistants and VAs and production teams in other parts of the world. They send you an invoice, you pay the invoice, they work for you, they work also for other clients, right? Of course, being contractors, and up until you're happy and they deliver quality by the deadline that you told them, for us it's the same, you know what I mean? So why not? So it really depends by also locations and how big is the budget for a certain type of client, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, interesting. And so like that's for the finance function. If we zoom out, you have 60 folks today. What's the split? How many of them did you decide make sense as a contractor versus employee?
So more than depending on the position is about geolocations. So we do run the majority of the business in the US, but we also have, people in Europe and Latin America, someone in Dubai. And so it really depends more, again, more than the function is the physically where they're based. But overall, the majority of the people that work with us, they are campaign managers. They go from interns, junior, and then mid, and then senior, and then you can become head of or like team lead, and then head of. That's something that we grow a lot during the years. Initially, we are like not that many, and the CEO or the co-founder talk to everyone in the company. That's quite common. Then you add a layer, and the layer is not just to have more people helping you out, but I think there is also a good way to reshuffle things around where you are not pinged every single second about anything, right? You try to put rules and avoid to be all the time ask 1,000 questions. So now you have, okay, maybe I'm gonna talk with the team lead. I will not talk with the intern or the junior because I need those levels, right? Those layers between me and the other person. Mostly because if not, again, you have to stop what you're doing, right? To talk with 1,000 people, you don't really work on anything. So majority of people are in the campaign management. We have people in the marketing department, marketing not for clients, but for our own corporate. So lead generation, brand awareness, and so on. We also have a branch that is dedicated to talent management. We also represent talents, so we have people working there. We have social media management as well. So we have a lot of different departments that they talk to each other when it comes to campaigns, because these days we're not anymore just an influencer marketing agency. We're a creator economy agency, meaning that we do offer much more. And so for us, we don't really care where people are based. Of course, maybe if a client is very US based and you need to understand the ins and out of an industry or of a specific state. Let's say there is a company that is very, somehow related or it's associated with a specific area, then yes, you want maybe someone from there. They understand the language very well, they understand the culture and so on. But if that's not the case, you need to primarily manage a campaign. We prefer to look at who is the best in class to running certain things more than where are they based. And I think that is going overall for companies, right? Like, why do we have to limit ourselves to look people in New York where I'm based or Miami where our headquarters is based when you can find fantastic people all over the world? And we are a total like 100% remote company. For us, it's about outcomes and quality of the work, but deadlines more than how many hours are you working in the office. I need to see you there, because I think that this is such a old school, right, way of seeing work that, especially with a team very young like ours that is full of Gen Z and millennials, it doesn't fly anymore, right? Like there are other values these days. And believe me, like whenever we hire people, sometimes when they see that it's remote and they don't have to commute, it's already like 10 points on the application already on their side, because they're like, okay, wow, I don't need to waste my time, in commute. Places like LA, right, where the typical person lose 3 hours a day in commute only. So they're happy about it,
That's way easier. I used to live out there and it took me forever.
right? So,
Okay, and so then it sounds like you have most of your folks in campaign management, and um, and so the way you've structured it, it sounds like it's pods where you have a campaign manager who also talks to the client, right? So that's kind of like the account manager, campaign manager, relationship builder, right? And it sounds like you have a strategist and an executor. Is that how the pods work out?
Yeah, correct. So like there is someone that is working on the strategy that usually before the campaign starts. So the person that comes with all the pitch and all the strategic ideas and all the concepts. And then that goes, like to the campaign managers. That is also the person doing the client facing. And then there are people that are on the execution team that don't talk to the client. They might be on calls, that they listen in, and they are the ones that send these emails out to influencers. They are the one managing the budget and negotiate the pricing, helping with agreements, right? When it comes to a typical campaign with, let's say, 50 influencers involved, for each of them, there is an agreement out there of several pages with the scope of work, like so the scale, right, of something like this, it becomes quite huge, and that's why you want to have everyone that knows how to create an agreement, how to communicate certain things to the client, and that is very important. So we invest a lot in onboarding when it comes to new people in the company. Something that I spend time reading clusters of competitors. I think that's goldmine to learn about mistakes and what to do about hiring and firing. And I read a lot of clusters. And one of the things that I noticed that many people complain about onboarding not being there. Like you arrive in a new company and you be told like, this is your account, good luck, I'll see you soon. And for us, it's very important that the team lead, right, is able to not only coach but also like and teach and inspire their senior. The senior have to talk with their mid and junior, and the junior have to fully prepare like the interns. Like this hierarchy, it's important, and it's not just because of in politics, internal politics, whatever. It's like truly how do you nurture someone from going to a junior to becoming tomorrow a team lead, and the only way is for them to understanding all the pieces of the puzzle by having the right type of onboarding. And so that I think where companies that are getting started, and now also in our case, at the beginning we didn't spend maybe enough time on documentation and video tutorials and step-by-steps. Those are things that we as founders, as entrepreneurs, everything is in our head, right? We're like, of course, this is where you click the thing. This is the process. We take it for granted as entrepreneurs because we do a thousand things. But there are certain people that maybe are fantastic and great at doing one thing, right? And they need tutorials. They need webinars. They need to have their question answered. And again, I think that when we are so busy building a business, we don't spend enough time in nurturing like new employees. We don't spend enough time in creating proper documentation so that if you are finding a replacement for a person, the person can get into your documentation tool and read everything that they have to go through. That I think is an important aspect of running a business, going from, let's say, year one, from like it's a startup mode, everything it's around, it's messy. How do we create a very structured way to teach people?
How did you, because I feel like most people I talk to don't appreciate the onboarding process as much as you do, and it needs to be appreciated. How'd you figure that out? Was it reading like stalking competitors and reading their Glassdoor, or did you have a moment that an employee, like an employee didn't do something right because they didn't get onboarded?
I think when you start seeing the mistakes, and when you see that someone is not following the protocols that you built. It's when you start seeing that you go on a call with someone and this person is copy pasting things instead of using a formula in Google Sheets. It's when you built a framework and then you go back after 6 months and then now the file is completely different. That is a typical broken telephone problem, right? You start making a copy of a copy of a copy of a file, and then you start with a version A, and then you look back, and then that version is doesn't make sense anymore, right? Because there are so many iteration of a mistake. Like if you catch the mistake at the beginning, it's still doable. There are moments where a mistake becomes so big that now is the new reality, is the new normal. And now, if you haven't trained properly a senior person, the senior will train in the wrong way their juniors. And the junior will do the same. It's a non-stop loop of errors and mistakes. So that's what I noticed. Like it can be a lot of things. It can be presentations, right? Like you have certain brand guidelines that you should follow. Small things, your font, your logos and everything. If you're not onboarded on what are your brand guidelines, the next person that a junior needs to create a presentation. Now, all the colors are different. The font is not yours. The logo, it's another version. And now it's like, this is not us. This is not our branding. And now you have to go back and be like, where was the mistake? Was it because I wasn't clear enough to my senior? Was the senior not clear enough? So it's one of those things that it's very difficult to work on, because when you're building a business, you're so busy with the day-to-day, with the cash flow, with building the company, that you don't have unfortunately the time and the mind space to stay on top of everything. But all this to say, do that, because the time that you look back, maybe after 6 months, thinking that everything goes well, and then you look back and you start noticing that files don't make sense, broken formulas here and there, the branding is not on point, then it's going to take so much more time to recalibrate everything, because we are people of habits. And if someone has done the same thing for 6 months, good luck in going back, or like for 3 years, good luck in being there like, this is all wrong, we have to change this entirely, and now you have to rewire your brain for the past 3 years. If instead you catch an error or something is getting bigger after a couple of weeks, then you're still on time, on time to change things.
And I think that what you mentioned is such a huge, hairy topic. And I think people don't appreciate how complicated this is.
Yeah.
And so like you mentioned onboarding, you're very passionate about onboarding.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a whole flow post onboarding, right? You've got, if you make a decision, you've got change management to make sure people actually do it. Culture, figuring out how do people act where there's no SOPs. Performance, right? How do you track all the stuff that's happening? And so when you take all these parts together, then you get what you're talking about, which is less flow of mistakes to the business. How have you guys thought about this? Because this is a complicated topic.
It's a thing that I would love to do more, but there are moments in business where it's in your calendar, you schedule things and you go about proper things. And then I'm not gonna lie, there are moments where you lose track of things, and then you forgot about a performance review. You forgot about, maybe that you were building something. Many times you start building something, and then similar to real construction in the world, like you see a building, right? And they're building it, and then they finish the founds, they got some licensing problems. Then you go back and you still see the same foundation of the building after 1 year. And you ask, what happened to this? Like, they never built. The same happened to the thousand of ideas that we have every day, right? And so we think about, we need to do this new career journey for this person. And then you get sacked, right, in the business, unfortunately. And then now you go back and be like, what was this note about? Oh yes, 6 months ago, we talk about this new documentation that we have to implement. But you know what happened? Today we're recording like some Monday, right? You have the best intention, and then you get to Friday, you push things out. Okay, I'll tell these, and then we can go a bit more in detail. I'd say that don't think that other businesses out there are perfect. They are far away from perfect. Like, whenever you look at your business and you want to scream, right? And you say, everyone else is perfect, my business is terrible because I haven't figured out everything yet. Anything, or like not all that, please, like, give yourself a break and say, others are going through this. And I know this because I was part of membership with other founders. Okay, different sizes, like people doing 100 million and people doing 2 million per year. Okay, so I saw it all. And the ones even doing 100 million, still trying to understand things. Okay, the ones doing 2 million, trying to understand things. So the thing is that in a theoretical world, you want to have everything perfect. You have performance review every 3 months. You want to have everything in a Google Sheets that use AI to generate a feedback based on, yes, fantastic. You cannot build everything in Rome wasn't built in one day, right? So the thing is that you cannot expect by yourself and by your team that everything is going to be perfect. It's important that you see if something is not going in that direction and try to fix it, right? But again, this idea that I did the mistake myself sometimes, looking at maybe competitors to be like, maybe they understood everything in life. And then I know from like insights and intel and everything that they're also maybe struggling on something, right? And so I think that the moment that you realize that it's normal not to be perfect, it's when you can breathe again and be like, okay, let me take one thing at a time. Today I'm going to focus on only documentation for this department. Then I'm going to move on. The mistake that I've done in the past is to open too many things at the same time. oh, today I'm going to do documentation for the entire company. You know what happens? I don't close any of those. So now the data team has a partial, it's a half-baked type of situation. So I do think it is better to do silos, right? You do build something today, and then you say, okay, it's not perfect, but listen, today I did 5%, okay? And tomorrow I'm going to do another 5%. And then you build a system, and then every year you review it. Also because when you go from 0 to 5 people, you're a very startup, scrappy mode. It's fantastic. It's fun. Everything counts and whatever. Then you go from 5 to 10. And what people think is that, especially in an agency, you think, oh, I go from 10 to 20, then from 20 to 30. I just need to hire more people and I just need to do more revenue. No. People think that it's case like this, No. You have to change the complete structure of your business, okay? So even if you think that you got it entirely after maybe, let's say, year 3, and then you got 30 people, now you say, I do the jump, I'm getting to 50 people now. You have to review everything. You have to go back and be like, this structure worked at a 30 people team. Now we are 60. Not just because you double, you can just double the revenue. No. The communication, how you run reports, how do you look at marginalities, like all these things change when it comes to, more people in the company. Even the culture. We are very big on culture, right? We have, I'm very proud of our 5-star Glassdoor, that we have. And it's how do you still care about people? How do you still show as a founder? And when you're 10 people, you know everyone and you talk to everyone. Now we're, 50 to 60. I still know everyone. Of course, you are not, Microsoft, but how do you still show that you care? How do you still being able to be a professional, but also a human being, understanding that we have feelings and so on and so on and so on. So, all this to say that it will feel that it's never perfect, but it's never perfect when you're building a business, and it's okay. And you have to be okay with that, knowing that you're doing the best every day to fix one thing at a time. And up until you're okay with that, with yourself, and you're reviewing things every few months, that's more than enough. But don't do the mistake of being like, oh my God, everyone else understood the answer of life and I'm still struggling. No, believe me, even the others, they might not tell publicly, but they also go through something.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it in that you have unlimited ideas, but you have limited resources,
Yes.
right? And so even like, I was a management consultant at Fortune 500s, and they have a ton of resources. And it's literally the same activity, which is how do you prioritize the most important things?
Yeah.
And so that's a good question, which is how do you prioritize the most important things? Like for us, it was figuring out what are the few levers we can pull to get the most outcome. And so our framework we called it desirability, viability, feasibility. Or in other words, how bad do customers want it? How easy it is for us to do it, and how much money does it make us? And so we would take all of our ideas and kind of rank them on that 3-part framework. What did you guys do? How do you guys figure it out?
So initially for us, as any company, is you only look at your market share. And for us, priority was new business, okay? We don't care who is the business, how much it is. We want to win business. We want to get a name out there. And again, we came in a market with $1,500, no connections, no one. There were already competitors in the industry. So imagine when you're going against others that have potentially like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, to invest in ads, and then it's by yourself, right? And just a couple of people. So initially was we need to get the name out there, and priority was marketing, SEO, brand awareness, and sales, like lead generation. And we were doing everything ourselves. That means you wake up at 4 a.m, you work 18 hours, you try to get some money to get someone else is going to help you with some of those. So the first phase was lead gen and market share and become a name in the industry. So truly only like positioning. I think the priority for us was positioning and lead gen and winning business. And we've done that for a few years. Then the second phase was a combination between data and operation. and finance, the one that was saying, so how do you go from revenue to actually getting better margins and operations, right? So, okay, now maybe you have this structure with a lot of people that work at the same level. Isn't it better to maybe hire someone or to promote someone? So now we have one person that is in between us and them, and this person can actually become the client-facing manager, right? And so all that was, how do you optimize time? Because now maybe you're finding out that 5 people are doing the same job, while what's the point of it? Shouldn't we have maybe 3 people doing the same job in terms of operations and execution, and 2 people will do the managers, right? And so the second phase was that, I think, was how do you operate better? How do you work on margins? Because the moment you got into, you get your name out, and that will take a long time, right? It takes time, it takes efforts, it takes so much in terms of pushing your narrative out. The second phase, okay, now we got revenue, let's work on margins. Let's work on saying, what offering should we get, out there. And then the third phase, I'd say, in terms of priority, was also what other type of maybe senior hires that we need to do to bring to the next level. And so you now start looking at what are those people. It could be salespeople, it could be strategic people, partnership people that bring to the next level your company, going from, okay, we're doing our things, so we understood revenue, now we understand a bit more margins. How do we scale in a way that things don't break? Okay, and I think that is the phase that brings you to then all the M&A world, right? If you tomorrow you want to sell the business, whenever they come to you, they don't care really about your revenue. If you're an agency, they look at your EBITDA, they will give you a multiplier on that, and they want to see that everything is under control. You have a full sense of how to scale the business, and you have an exact structure in place. And if tomorrow you need to scale, you have everything ready to go, where you don't have to think about it. You already have everything, and so I think that the phase for a business like us was truly just get a name out, work on marketing, sales, then operations and optimization, then senior people to bring it to the next level. And the last that would be for the next year would be, okay, if you want to exit, what are the things that you have to work on, right? Do you have to hire maybe someone specifically only that can shape your because you can have a company that is great but is not prepared for the market, right? While you can have an okay company, but if you play it well, you can market it well. And so I'm also asking myself sometimes, do I need, right, maybe a person that can help you shape the company in a way that is going to be ready tomorrow for, let's say, an acquisition, right? And so that is something that I'm also sometimes think about. But it really depends where you're at, right, in your journey. But that what worked for us. I don't think there are formulas out there. Each person is different, right? But this is what we done so far, and so far so good.
And so, okay, so I heard 4 phases. Phase
Yeah.
1 is grow the business. Phase
Yeah.
2 is make the business more efficient. Phase 3 is bring in senior folks to scale the business. And phase 4 is start growing faster through acquisition.
Or shape the business where you don't have to think anymore. It's just my business. What if this business was part of a bigger organization?
Yeah.
And that is,
Yeah.
I think, it's a very important and difficult mindset shift. Okay, as a bootstrap entrepreneur, it's difficult sometimes to think that it's not you anymore, right? Even if you have a co-founder or 2 co-founders, now you have to think, what if I'm part of something bigger than me? And you might not even understand at the beginning what all that means, right? So, okay, now we're running things in this way. Okay, what if we get merged with another group? How do you run things? Do we have to cut people? Do we continue using this accounting system? There is so much more. And I think that exercise, even if you don't go into an M&A, like a real M&A process, I would recommend to people listening that have an idea that later on to sell, start thinking of your business as a sellable business. Because even again, if you're generating revenue, you have just like good numbers, but if you don't have a proper system in place, your finances are not good in terms of books, things are not reconciled properly. If you don't have an idea on how to scale, buyers will get and be like, it's a nice business, but it doesn't have the structure that can scale with us, and we would have to invest money. So it's a great exercise, and I will finish on this to say, you will realize of things that don't work currently well on your business, because only once you're forced to see from a different lens, like from a buyer lens, now you stop thinking as an entrepreneur in terms of this as a founder, you start thinking as an entrepreneur. It's not just my baby anymore. What if tomorrow I sell it? What do I need to do? And this forcing, I think, that opened a few other ways to see your business, again, from different lens that you didn't see before. And that might give you the haha moment of like, oh, that's why we're never able to do that, because I was looking in this way while others are looking in that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. And so if that's how you prioritize, and we'll ask the final question, kind of wrap this up. What are the biggest priorities for you now in terms of what stage you're at? Like if you look 12 months from now, what are the things that you need to fix in the next 90 days to get you to the next level of scale?
I think that will continue with some specific senior, and with senior, I mean people that have been in the business long enough to understanding how to bring a business to the next level in terms of the connections that you need. How do you pitch yourself to a certain type of company, right? That's also something that I learned myself in the years. At the beginning, you always speak with certain smaller companies, and it's a bit easier to sell yourself. But then when you get into, as we are RFPs with Fortune 500, right? You mentioned those before. The process of an RFP, oh my God, like anyone listening that have been through that, it's hours and hours of filling information inside these crazy platforms that they manage all the vendors, right? To understand that world, it took me a minute. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't come from big companies, okay? I always come from smaller companies. So just understanding the lingo that you need to use in RFP process is something that either you learn yourself, or you get someone that comes from that and teach you. This is how you pitch to a Fortune 500. Because pitching to a Fortune 500 is not pitching to, the ice cream shop downstairs, okay? It's not just, oh, now it's not anymore 10K, it's $1 million, so I'm gonna price things $1 million. No, it's how you present yourself, it's how you present your company, it's the narrative, it's what do they care about. Learning that, it takes years. So for people listening today and be like, oh, I'm not winning RFPs or not even getting RFPs, is because it's a very hard and long-term game to play, and you might get in many of those, you might work on a lot of them and wasting money and time, and you might not win them. But just doing that, you learn how to bring your company to the next level in terms of how do you position yourself. So to answer your question, all this to say, I'm looking at more senior people that been there, done that, and they have that. They are like almost like they have so many years of experience and those type of connections to talk to certain people that maybe are on the board of certain companies and so on, that can give you that connection needed to bring you to the table more RFPs and so on and so on. So it's a mix, right, of politics and who you know and getting the message out there together with skills, right? It's always how charismatic you are plus how much value can you bring to the table. And that's the only way. You need a bit of luck, you need a bit of connection, you need a bit of skills. People saying it's one of the, no, it's a combination all the time. That's it.
You need a bit of everything.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. And so, Alessandro, where can people find you?
So I have a few places. Of course, LinkedIn is the one. I'm almost getting to 20,000 followers there. So quite proud of the achievement there. I post every week about the creator economy. So you can follow me there. I also host a podcast in the top 1% globally called the Influence Factor, where I interview a lot of people that are usually brand marketers, and you can learn a lot. It's like a 20 minutes conversation, very day-to-day operationally speaking. And then on our website, theinfluencemarketingfactory.com, we have all our works, our services, what we do. But whoever is listening want to reach out, I think that LinkedIn, just do the connect, send me a quick note so I know that you come from this conversation, and happy to meet others.
Amazing, amazing. Well, the conversation's been great. Thanks for coming on, Alessandro.
Thank you, Brian.
Appreciate you.